Hello, welcome to Camera Chat, the weekly show where we speak to people from across the industry, from sound to lighting to camera operating and everything in between. Today we're going to be joined by John Irvine, and he is a DP. Hi, John. How you doing?
Good.
Sorry,
Thanks
I
for having
butchered your
me.
name just then.
No worries. It's a rebed, but yeah, it's fine.
Oh, Uribe. Sorry.
Growing up, especially like in elementary school, I would just get like so many different mispronunciations. It was funny. But yeah, glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. So, do you want to just introduce yourself to the audience? Tell them a little bit about what you do, and kind of like just briefly go over the role of a DP for people that don't know.
Sure. So my name is John Uribe. I've been a cinematographer for the past 10 years now. Um, as a cinematographer, you kind of have to take on a lot of positions, really. Yeah, the main role is camera and lighting. Make sure that everything in your frame looks gorgeous and also plays into the story and the director's vision. But you gotta be a weatherman. You got to see where the sun's gonna be in terms of where when to plan your shot. You got to do a lot of pre-production. A lot of people really talk about how great cinematography is, but it's not just one person. You got to work with your gaffer. You got to work with production design to really get the look that the director envisioned across. So I've through this past 10 years, I've learned a lot, being a cinematographer, and I'm continuing to learn. I'm no expert, but I love the role and I love the industry because of the opportunity to learn and grow.
Absolutely, and that's what we're all about here for the live show for Camera Chat. We're meeting kind of people across the industry so we can all learn and grow together. So thank you so much for joining us.
Right.
And you mentioned kind of your work as part of a crew. Is there times where you're kind of working more as like a one-man band or with a small crew, or are you mostly working with a bigger crew, just so the audience get a sense of kind of the level you're at?
Right. So it depends on the job. The past few years I've been doing a bunch of commercials, and with those commercials, there's a crew. We got your lighting team, your grip team, the camera position. Sorry, camera team and all that. So working with a larger crew it can be efficient. It helps you achieve the look. But I've also done jobs where it's just by myself. Um, Not too long ago last year, in December, I flew out to Texas for a one-man band job. So I'm based here in San Francisco, and I took a big old 120D lighting kit, a couple of stands, my camera package, some lenses, all this stuff. And it's surprisingly, I didn't even need that much. But being the one-man band, it can be challenging. But yeah, I've done it all, really. So.
Cool. Well, guys, drop your comments for John below. Like you said, anything about kind of camera operating, lighting, framing, planning as well. Anything about being a DP, aspiring to be a DP, and anything kind of in between that. So, the way this is going to work is we're going to break down a few projects that John's done. He's going to talk us through kind of his motivation behind some of the creative choices he made, kind of his role during that. If you have any questions at any point, just drop them down below and we'll pin them up and answer them. So, yeah, John, first we're going to look at FlexiSpot. Do you want to just give people a bit of an overview of this before we queue it up?
Yeah, this one, excuse me, this one was really interesting to work on. We shot when I was working for this old production company. We shot for this client, FlexiSpot, a few different videos, and their company is mainly like desk risers for office spaces. But they came to us with their this was like a couple of years ago, but they came to us with the desk bike, which is really fascinating. I enjoy using that desk bike even to today, but when we were pitching these ideas, a lot of them kind of like fell short. And then we came across this idea about this project that we shot, kind of like a music video, a dance number type thing. So, we pre-planned it. We did a lot of location scouts. We hired a choreographer, all the stuff that you need, especially like for music videos and things like that. But it was really interesting to take something that's usually like a corporate environment and then kind of like add music, add a dance number to it. So that one was really fun. It was like one of my funnest projects that I worked on as a cinematographer.
Cool. Well,
Um,
let's queue up the video and you can kind of talk us through it as we go.
sure.
So, FlexiSpot, here we go.
So one of the biggest issues when we were shooting at this location was the office space. You'll see in the wide shot right now. So there's a lot of reflections in the office space. So luckily, for that kind of lighting, we set up a bunch of floppies or black curtains so we wouldn't see too much reflections. But luckily, the background was also dark in terms of like the trees and stuff, so we were able to get away with it. For a lot of these camera movements, they were just mainly inserts until we get to like the meat of the project, which was pretty fun. So when we get into the meat of like what the project is, the clicking, what you can do, it's really a work environment thing. But in terms of when it comes to lighting and cinematography, we were just really kind of like, okay, let's just, the most important thing is getting these dance numbers down, because it was a pretty long day. It was like maybe a 12-hour day. But a lot of it, was just trying to get the timing down right. So, but working with the choreographer, working with your gaffer, your grip team, we were able to achieve it and still have a little bit of daylight left. So, so that's that project.
It looked great, and that was kind of the thing that jumped out of me straight away when I saw that, is that the reflective windows, right? Because you've got the practicals overhead, and they're kind of reflecting in the window. So my question was kind of, how did you supplement that lighting with your lighting without it being super obvious in the windows?
Right. So with that lighting, sorry. So with that lighting, we used the overheads quite a bit actually, and then we had some Kinos, like 4-foot Kinos with some quasars on it, and we were able to adjust each of the tube kind of like a little salt and pepper. So we had some tungsten lights in there as well as some daylight, just to match kind of more or less, the daylight coming in through the windows as well as the top overhead. Right there. So we were able to just kind of do that, and we had some floppies there to reduce reflection, because everywhere we placed the light, no matter what, you would see it in the window, which was super annoying. But it still worked out, and we were able to really, really kind of hide it. In the wider shots, it was a little more challenging. We kind of had to put the lights towards even the edge of, towards the walls, but it was enough output to get, what we needed to do.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because when you watch that, obviously, if you're doing unless it's a stylistic choice, if you're doing your job as a DP, as a gaffer, you want to make it look like it belongs in the space, like it's not lit at all, right? And that actually really came across in the video. So that was really good that you managed to kind of sell that as well as make the space work for you. And is that something you do a lot? Do you use, when you are limited by the space, would that be like the physical size of the space, or like you said, the reflections? Are you kind of using a lot of the practicals as your base, or what's your approach when you walk into a space, I guess my question is?
No, that's a good point. Every project is different. So every time I walk into a new space where I'm location scouting, I want to see what kind of natural light the windows provide. I want to see if there's any practicals, or if we can think of certain practicals that, a certain setup. I've worked on sound stages where we had to create our whole sets, you know what I mean? And working based off those practicals as well. So you can go from something where you see the location, it's great, boom, 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 or to create something yourself, which requires a lot more planning. Of course, but I just see how the natural light works, in the environment already, and then try to work off of that with my gaffer.
Yeah, and just while we're on this project, I really like the kind of the overhead rig that you had, and I think that was for the shot where kind of the desks were kind of sliding in and out, right? And you had that kind of that. Let me just. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, there's just a little overhead rig here. It's really cool.
Right.
How did you go about rigging that up?
So I love doing this technique. We had a Dana dolly, and we undersling it. So essentially, with the platform of the Dana dolly, you put the camera on top. What we did is we put the camera underneath the platform, and we were able to kind of like just dolly, the overhead shots where they're kind of moving the desk back and forth. Funny thing about the shot, though, we didn't have long enough track to do that specific shot. So in the original footage, you do see the stands, the leg of the stand. So we had our graphics guy remove them, and it worked out pretty well.
That's cool. Yeah, David says overhead Dana dolly for the win. And if you don't know, David's a gaffer, and he's actually one of the guests that was on a previous stream. So He's probably going to be very
Oh,
interested
right.
after
Yeah,
these
yeah.
lighting breakdowns.
Oh, nice. Yeah, totally.
Cool.
Yeah, Dana Dolly is great. Been using that for years. I've been on different productions where some are pretty large, where it's like, like you got a Chapman jail Fisher Dolly or whatever. And then for me, it's like majority of my projects are if they're a one man band, that Dana Dolly comes in, or for small spaces, that you could use a 4-foot track or whatever, because I know how challenging it can be to have like a larger doorway dolly, for all these places.
So, just for people that don't know, and this is the first time I've heard that term because I work on a lot smaller style stuff. A Dana Dolly, is that just kind of something that runs on tracks? Is that
Yeah, yeah,
the definition?
it's a platform that has skateboard wheels on the bottom, and they run on speed rail track that you can find at any still house or any for Expendables place here in San Francisco. I love going to JCX in San Francisco. They have pretty much everything you need there. So yeah, so it's just stands with track, a platform, and then your camera on it. So and the platform holds a lot of weight actually. I Yeah, I put some pretty heavy cameras on there too, but even lighter cameras are fine too. But it seems to be working for a Dane Dolly. Seems to work best when there's a lot of weight on it.
And is that just to kind of, does the weight just help to stabilize the camera more? Is that why the weight works?
Right. Right. So sometimes, you'll find yourself if you're using like a smaller camera for something like that. I mean, maybe a smaller slider or something. But if you're using a Dana Dolly, maybe put some sandbags at the end, really kind of weight it down so it's not so wobbly. But yeah, to keep the movement smooth.
Cool. Well, let's move on to your next project, and we're going to talk about the mattress company.
Okay.
Let's. Do you want to just do a quick intro before we cue that up?
Yeah, this one was another interesting one that we did as well. This one we build in a soundstage, in a place called Mac House Productions in Fremont. They're really great people to work with. But this company, I believe they're based in Asia, but I think they have a partnership with like Manchester United. So we were kind of playing off of that, trying to see like, okay, what kind of sports or football we can try to tie into that. So when we were when we were pitching all these ideas to the client, they really like this whole Sleeping Beauty kind of aspect. So we went with that, and for some of these projects, not the flexi spot dancing, but this one I actually wrote, and so I write and direct sometimes. I try to stay away from that if possible. But this one
That's
was
interesting.
fun.
So you're wearing multiple hats depending on the project.
Right. At my old job, I was wearing a lot of hats, but now I'm back to being a full-time freelancer, mostly due to COVID. But yeah, I was writing and directing a little bit, at that job. But for this project, I was the writer in DP. I didn't direct this project, but this one was interesting and fun because we built the whole set in one day. And then, the next day when we shot it, well, we built it, we pre-lit it, and then the next day when we shot it, we took everything down. It was like quick, 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 and the team, was really great to work with. They worked really hard on this project. So
Cool. Let's roll the project, and you can talk us through your creative decisions.
okay. Yeah, for these we kind of just had like two giant windows through two HMIs in there just to like mimic the sun, as much as we could. But we also had the sheer curtains and everything. Um, this one was more of a comedy piece ish, but it was fun. It was fun. Probably discuss it after it's over.
Well, what did you expect? The relaxed feeling from our double jacquard fabric knit is designed to provide advanced breathability and comfort. Our M. Lily Airflow Gel is infused into our aerodynamically designed memory foam, creating a cooler surface, which is scientifically engineered. Unlike this fairy tale. Our mattresses have the utmost support with a quilted bamboo charcoal foam layer that regulates moisture and temperature while adapting to your pressure points. M. Lily mattress comes with a 10-year limited warranty. Find a retailer near you. M. Lily, redefining sleep.
Do you
So
Sorry there.
no worries. So for that one, it was a lot of fun to work on. We placed, what was it, 2 HMIs outside each window. We had a couple of overhead rigs where we placed a couple of 120Ds with some light domes, kind of just to provide more ambient light for everywhere. But this one, it was a lot with the story that really was just a lot more fun. But in terms of just being the cinematographer on the set, I really communicated with the production design, with my gaffer, and with the director. Because when it comes down to it, with cinematography, it's always to the director's vision. And I know that no, not 4K HMI. They were so it was a 1600 Joker on one side, and then 1.2 Airy Sun on the other side. The lights we were using, powerful lights would work better, but I think just because the space was a lot smaller, we didn't really need that much power output. This project was super fun. Yeah.
Cool. And what sort of camera rig were you using? I've noticed from kind of a lot of the BTS stuff, you're using red cameras mostly. Is that right?
Well, Red I own a Red, so that's just for the most part I market myself with that. But so I use Reds, and then I use Alexas as well. Any camera really that's just provided either for the production or something that I need to bring myself.
So do you have a preference for the camera that you like to use, or is it just kind of whatever the job kind of, if a job requires you to rent an Alexa, then you'll do that? If it's a Red, then you'll do that. Do you have any preference, or is it just kind of whatever works for the job?
My preference is the Alexa sensor. It's especially the camera itself, so easy to use, and the image, you don't really have to think twice about it. The image is just there. I've been using Red for years, so I like using them, but I tend to find myself, when I'm grading or when I'm applying a LUT or a look to my camera, it tends to go into that red or to that airy look, But cameras are just, you hear every DP say cameras are just tools and things like that. But everybody has their preferred, sensor, their preferred color science, their preferred menu system, everything that works for them. I know some people who are dedicated Sony people. I know some people who are dedicated Red people. So, but for me, yeah, it depends on the job. I made the mistake of shooting this broadcast news report on a Red once, and the file was just way too large. So you learn from your mistakes as working in the industry.
So were you
there are certain
shooting
cameras
that?
I'm not too. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, I was saying, were you shooting that broadcast piece in Red RAW? Is that kind of?
Well, it was R3D files, but I also, there's the extra steps you got to do. Like I convert them to ProRes, so they were having that files as well. This was a while back though. Nowadays, with the newer DSMC2 cameras, you can do ProRes plus R3D files. So there, that's always a good option, especially for editing 2K files or things like that.
Sure. And so guys, if you have any questions for John, just drop them below. Any questions on cameras, lighting, sound, planning, directing, writing, John's done it all. So drop them below and we'll do our best to get into them. So yeah, my question for that kind of last job is how big was the crew? Because I noticed that you wrote, directed, and you were like the camera operator as well. How big was the crew there? Because I noticed that a lot of the sound was kind of done in post, right? So like the sound effects rather were done in post. Did you still have a soundie on the day?
Yeah, we had we had kind of full crew. We definitely had a sound guy. We had a gaffer, an electric, and a grip. me as camera operator, DP. We had an AC, the producer, the director, and then we had production art director with an assistant, and then like maybe 3 or 4 PAs. So there's a lot really that went into it. And I love working, with larger crews, because especially ones that you continue to work with, over the years. Like I have a dedicated gaffer I like to use, or a couple of dedicated gaffers. I have a couple of dedicated ACs I love to use, and working with a larger team, and then you're all on the same page, to get behind the certain look, the certain feel, everything that really just contributes to the story. It's nice. It's really nice. I know COVID recently has kind of like shortened and smaller the crews, which has been, whatever. But it's fun. It's fun. But there are some projects like currently right now I'm doing like my own kind of documentary web series, interviewing people, kind of just going through their strategy for success, things like that. So, and that one's probably going to be a smaller crew, maybe a DP, a gaffer, a grip, and a sound guy. You know what I mean? So it really depends on the projects. But yeah, for a larger setup like that, yeah, definitely. I mean, we could have had more people, but there's always budget restraints and things like that. So.
Absolutely. And I've heard kind of other professionals talk about kind of having that synergy on set. So like you said, you use a gaffer regularly, so you probably have the same kind of creative language you use. But what kind of instructions are you giving to your gaffer? Are you saying, I need this to be half a stop darker over here, for example? Or are you just saying, I want this look? Is it more of like a general creative kind of discussion, or is it more technical, or can it be both?
Oh yeah, no, I'm glad you asked that question. I've grown in this industry. I've been in the AC role. I've been in the gaffer role, grip role. I was a grip on a feature, which was, was eye opening and a new appreciation for gripology. But when I'm lighting the scene, I'll talk to my gaffer, and for the most part, me being a gaffer prior to being a cinematographer, I guess. I kind of know the lingo. I kind of know what light output. I kind of, based on that, and I'll talk to my gaffer. Let's rig a S60, a sky panel overhead, and put something soft in it and things like that. Sometimes I'll be a little more detailed on things if I haven't worked with the gaffer or anything like that. But then there's gaffers with years of experience, and you just kind of really just tell them what you want. Let me get a soft key on this side, let me get something with kind of just, and you start to deal with ratios as well, a 5/6 on this side, a 2 on this side, maybe it's a little something harsh on the backlight, all these, the more you go, the more you start to learn. But in the beginning, it's going to be a little challenging. So that's why I recommend, if you want to be a cinematographer, learn lighting, learn a lot of lighting, talk to gaffers, work with gaffers, be a gaffer, just because like camera work is obviously is an obvious, but lighting is really where it's at, just because it deals with a lot more of setting the mood of your shot. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's when I communicate with my gaffers, we're typically on the same page. It's like, yeah, let me get this, that here. You know what I mean? I don't know if that answers your question or not.
No, absolutely. I was just curious about your creative process on set, and kind of, if I'm correct, what you're saying is you kind of feel out the skill base that's on your set at the time, and kind of work out the best language to use in terms of creative decisions on the day. Is that right?
There are times where that is the case, but there are with the preferred method, which is not always the case, where to plan, to pre-scout, to pre-light. Pre-light is, I mean, if you can pre-light your set before you shoot, you're in good hands, I guess, for the most part. But sometimes there is that challenge where it's like, okay, there's no budget for pre-light. There's no, or whatever. I mean, scouting is still super important, because as as a cinematographer, you want to see where light is coming from, so you're not like struggling the day of. But definitely meet with your gaffer, look at even photos. If you guys can't attend the scout location, look at photos and really kind of talk it out. I know a lot of DPs, prefer to pre-light and to do all that. But yeah. Sorry, I don't know if I answered your question. I kind of got lost in thought there.
No, that's great. It's really interesting. We're just going to go through a few questions. So George Nindy says, should I buy a light meter?
Uh, Yeah, I think a light meter is, for a gaffer or a DP is a great tool to have. And you don't have to get super expensive ones. I mean, they have some used ones, some more affordable ones out there. But the thing is, I love using a light meter just because, um, if I wanted to plan out the scenes or the shots or whatever based on the pre-production or based on the director's vision, I can just show up with the light meter right there, kind of just see what's coming from what, see what light is needed, things like that, rather than wait for the camera to be set up and then start doing the process. If you can have a rough idea, like really roughed in, your light meter will help you know start your day faster when it comes to lighting. But light meter also helps in terms of like having that accuracy, you know what I mean. I also shoot film when I can, so I have a Super 16 RE SR2 or ARRI SR2, sorry. And without a light meter, it can be a little challenging to do that. But a light meter, I think is super important, and I think you don't have to get the one with all the bells and whistles. Just get you a nice simple light meter. You can even use, they have one like I think on the phone that's
right. Yeah, you plug it into the
that can
bottom of the
run-
port. Yeah.
right, exactly. And I've seen those work pretty well as well. So yeah.
So what you're saying is it doesn't need to be super technical or super expensive, just something to measure the output of light and the color temperature, I guess. And David also
Right.
adds to that, they help to train your eye to see light like a camera does.
Oh yeah. Like I think David's right, because I think I tend to learn, like, even without a light meter, even without a camera, I'll go out on an overcast day and I'm like, this is F11. Yep. Yeah. Without needing, because yeah, he's right. It trains your eye to help you kind of like really kind of strategize in the beginning.
That's really interesting. So kind of because you're so ingrained in that thought process, when you're going about your daily life, you're still kind of switched on and thinking about camera settings.
Yeah, man.
Do you
To be
dream in
honest,
camera
like,
settings?
no. I mean, camera settings are great, but no, I tend to just always look at lighting. If I'm driving somewhere, every time I wake up, right now, how the light is hitting here.
Is that window
when
light?
it
It
comes,
looks very nice.
yeah, it's just window light.
No, it looks great.
But oh, thanks. Yeah, there's sometimes where you don't really need even that much lights. Like the location probably just looks great already, and maybe you just need a little bounce or something. A lot of people get caught up too much in the equipment they need. But yeah, of course, there are times where you do need a lot of output, or you do need certain gear for sure.
We've got a question from Justin Morrison, who says, do you find you're operating on most shoots, and if so, do you prefer it?
I find myself operating on most shoots. Sometimes I would prefer to have a camera operator. The last shoot I did, I was it was like the small music video for like a school, like a music school, a small music school, and it was all day carrying like a really heavy red package and with some anamorphics. I remember we put on this Atlas 100 millimeter anamorphic. I don't know if you guys worked with those. They're pretty heavy. But putting that like on an easy rig would be is fun and fine and all, but it really kind of just weighs you down in terms of like a lot of stress on your body. Luckily, we had the easy rig, because shoulder rig I would just mess up my back. I'm getting to a certain point in my age where it's like, okay, cameras are getting pretty heavy depending on all the stuff you put on it, or if they're lighter, that's fine. But yeah, I prefer to have a camera operator if possible.
Thanks for your question, Justin. That's really interesting. And in terms of, you mentioned the practical aspect of having a camera operator alongside you, in terms of kind of like taking the weight off. But in terms of creatively, does that really free you up to be more kind of take a bird's eye view of things and really be a bit more intentional with your decisions because you're not thinking about the camera?
Right. And yeah, because it frees up to like really communicate more with other heads. At least in my experience, other people are probably can chew gum and walk better than I can. But in terms of my experience, yeah, it does free me up to talk to the producer, not the producer, the director, the production designer, even the gaffer. We'll all kind of just really be very collaborative. You know what I mean? Whereas if you're a camera operator, you can still do that, but you're focused on a lot of more on the camera settings as well, making sure that, okay, this overcast is coming in, I need to open up stop, or I need to take an ND out, all that stuff that, you can just communicate with your camera operator and the ACs and the gaffers, and then really just focus on the image itself and making sure that ties into the story.
Great, thanks. David says, are you a union member?
No.
Okay.
Do you want me to elaborate on that? I don't know.
No, that's fine.
There are times where I think about joining it, but for the most part, I've never really had a need to, I guess. I mean, down the road, eventually, probably. Right now, I'm just kind of, surviving COVID right now. But prior to that, I was shopping around a few features, which possibly could have, made me propel into that union, down the union road. But no, I'm not a union member.
Thanks for your question, David. Yeah, so I think we're going to break down the third and final project, if that's cool with you, John. It's going to be Oculax. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about, set this up for us?
Yeah, Oculax, a lot of these projects that they're just, they come with us with something mundane, and we just try to create it ourselves. So this one I was also the writer on as well. But this one was interesting. The product is something for clearing your eyes, right? So you got, eye drops or whatever, but these are just kind of like patches that just go around the eyes, and they produce like, less redness and all that other stuff. But in terms of approaching this as a cinematographer, I was talking with the director and the production designer, and making sure that, we had all of our shots ready to go, because we had, I think, maybe 4 scenes to cover in one house in middle of winter in California, there wasn't a lot of daylight. It was overcast that day. But anyways, for this, we wanted to make it as bright and, kind of lively as possible. So, this one was fun too.
Cue it up.
Do you suffer from dry and tired eyes? Is your vision affected more and more every day?
This was
It tends to happen at the worst moments. And eye care is a
when you tend to shoot or write for projects, you definitely want to see examples, right? You definitely want to see what other people are doing. This one was just kind of like, okay, I saw like these medical commercials for prescriptions and things like that. I was like, okay, this could play into that kind of a style. So that's kind of the way I approached it in terms of writing it. This shot was fun. We rigged probably should have rigged a more powerful light, but we rigged like this 120D kind of just hitting him, and we did we powered it through a battery light and kind of just put it right there on the side of him as he was driving. Pretty cool.
With instant relief in just seconds, Oculax can last for up to 8 hours, keeping your eyes rejuvenated and refreshed. After thousands of years of acupuncture practice, scientists have finally developed this all-natural product, which is effective and safe for you and your loved ones. Simply apply the patches to the 6 acupoints around the eyes, then enjoy clearer, replenished eyes in no time. The Oculax patches work even when you sleep, giving your eyes the fresh start it needs the next day. Feel better right away with instant relief. Oculax, the difference you can see.
In California, which is just gorgeous. You shoot anything there, it just looks gorgeous, really. Yeah.
So David said straight off the bat, he loves the bathroom mirror shot.
Thank you, David. That was we when we scouted that, I knew exactly that, right away, okay, we don't have a lot of room, so let's try to use utilize the tubes for the most part. So this was more or less the setup. I would say the stand holding the warmer tube, the stand was flipped to the opposite side just because we had to shoot that way, and we changed the tube to daylight. Just we try to warm up the, because it's always nice to have that contrast, but in this scene it just didn't work. I think it was too much of a daylight look than trying to add a little more warmth to it. And then the tube that you see like kind of above the mirror is was on a low output, but we were using these yeah, exactly. We were using these dimmers that just didn't work, right? So a lot of the challenges that you might find is just kind of problem solving. And that's why I love being in this industry. But for that light, the dimmer we used, it wasn't an LED dimmer. So during takes, it would just bright flash, super like just it was. I was just like shocked. I was like, what is going on? But we were able to dial both of those down with some kind of like opal. It's not shown in the photo, just to create that more softness. Yeah.
I got ahead of myself there.
No
yeah, one of the shots that. Sorry, before I go on, David just followed that up. I love making L shapes with tubes as key lights, so rappy and flattering, especially in the mirror.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I learned that. Well, with the tubes actually from this other DP I was gaffing for. He's like, yeah, let's do this. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. And then I just started using it. So I was like, okay, cool.
So David and John as well, what are the benefits of using kind of like an L shape with LED panels like that? Sorry, LED strips like that.
Yeah, well, the ratios or the lighting is kind of like coming just from one side. A lot of the times that when you're shooting and you want to make it a little more cinematic, you want your shadow side to camera, right? So when we're doing that, I wanted the main key to be like it's coming from the window, give it more of a natural-ish look as much as possible. But the top one is just kind of like really just to fill more of the softness. The top tube wasn't as bright as the side tube. It's just kind of like a little more fill, so it kind of wraps the face nicely. Not too long ago, I did this other project where we put we had this key coming from the inside, but we also had this harsher sun with a diff coming from the outside. So it has like that nice wrap around. You know what I mean? So that those kind of techniques are nice to do.
So David's just follow that up. And David just adds, it allows you to emulate the lighting direction of a 45-degree soft source without taking up a ton of space. And it lets you hide the catch lights from their eyes if you wish to, or leave it in for stylized, I assume that stylized look.
Yeah, I like that the catch in the eye. It can be pretty nice, but it sometimes it can be distracting if it looks a little too artificial. But yeah, I mean the catch in the eye is really nice sometimes. Yeah.
Cool. We've got a question we've got a comment from Cognition who says he wants to buy some Oculax. So you've done your job well, John, there.
Wow.
Interesting show. The light, dreamy mood was great. Yeah, that really came across in the feel of the piece. We're using a lot of mist filters and a lot of kind of fog. We're using that kind of stuff to get that light, dreamy mood.
Right. Yeah, we used the DF50 hazer just to get like the more of the dreamy ambient look. And then I used an eighth Black Pro Mist, Tiffin Black Pro Mist for the filter. So our camera setup was a Red Epic Dragon with CP2 prime lenses. So that we wanted to make that kind of more dreamy look come across. Anything higher than 1/8, on top of the haze that we produced probably would have been way too much. So I think it worked out for that. So
absolutely. 50 Dreams Vlog says, hello everybody, hi, how you doing? Drop your question below. We're talking about camera operating, lighting, sound, everything in between, everything to do with being a DP. So drop your question below. Yeah, there was a shot that I really wanted to talk to you about, and it was kind of the car mount shot. So let me just cue that up. So we'll just show kind of the in.
Yeah, so when we were shooting this, this is part of Oculux as well. So when we were shooting this, the behind him was just a cliff that goes right into into the ocean down there, and the sun was mainly coming from that. So for the most part, we used the sun as our background, but kind of emphasized it with the 120D. Now there are certain parts where if we had to drive kind of like in a curvy road, the sun just kind of completely takes out that 120D. So it's like too harsh. But here, in the shadow areas, it kind of like, plays out a little bit better. So we could have rigged bigger lights and things like that, but all we had on were just a couple of small lights because we were mainly shooting outdoors. We didn't really expect to rig a light, but we were just like, yeah, let's try it. And, it worked out for some of the shots for sure.
Absolutely. So Dylan's just joined us. What was the most challenging part of this production for you?
I think we just had a lot to get through, and the time of day, we couldn't fit everything in one day. So everything within the house, everything that we could possibly do, we shot, and then that car scene was just another day. I think one of the most challenging things, especially for shooting outdoor scenes, is really plan your timing right. Because the sun, once it hits sunset, you think you got a little more to go, and then you can shoot some more, but it goes down fast, especially if you live in California where there's daylight saving time. The sun goes down even faster here.
Yeah, and I guess because if you're working as part of a bigger crew and you've got kind of lights rigged on cars and things like that, it's not as simple as kind of just moving the camera to kind of catch that last bit of daylight. It's really like a whole operation to get the framing changed right.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think for that car scene where we mounted it, it was just me and my gaffer, and the actor and director producer. So there wasn't much of a large crew, so that was also a challenging part. So it was just me and him, like rigging that and also rigging the camera. I don't know if you saw that, but there wasn't that much people to help us, but at the same time we had enough knowledge to just make sure that we get it done. So you run into those kind of problems where it's like, okay, there's not enough budget for the rest. Just hire the key people that you need that's going to get the job done. But I prefer to have just the right people in the right team, in the right department. But yeah, unfortunately doesn't ever work out always the same. It depends, on the project.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of leads me to my next question, was kind of like, is there a lot of thinking on your feet as a DP? Because like you said, you can do the best plans, you can have kind of the best crew, but the weather or situations or gear limitations always throw you a curveball. So how do you kind of keep on top of things on set and kind of manage like the millions of things going through your brain? What's kind of your best advice for kind of managing that mayhem?
A lot of it is very much problem solving. So if you run into a problem, especially like I think pre-production, pre-light, knowing the location, you kind of have a rough idea what you're going to do, or you can plan it out exactly like you were saying, shot for shot, light for light. But there are challenges that come up, and when they do, definitely don't do it by yourself. Talk to your gaffer, talk to whoever you can collaborate to really kind of help sell the product. So for example, in the Oculix project, we have that girl sitting at the table and doing the eye drops, right? That was completely, we were hoping for sun, but it was completely overcast. So we're trying to figure out, what the challenge were. Like outside right here was like this beam coming in, that's from an HMI, that's not the sun. So outside here was complete overcast. So what we did is, and this was, I sometimes don't recommend this. You make sure safety is number one, obviously. But we put a riser combo on top of a 1-ton, strapped it down, weighted it down, everything, and then we put the HMI, because this was like on the 3rd story and we didn't have stands high enough to get up there. So we put that on that 1-ton, raise it up, and we were able to get that light in there. But definitely, you definitely don't want to be doing this on your own. You want somebody who knows what they're doing, somebody who's, in grip, in lighting, who definitely knows what they're doing. But yeah, I've seen this done before, even on features, and, OSHA probably won't think the best of it, but sometimes there are those challenges where you're just like, okay, we just need to get this shot. Let's do it. But definitely be safe. Don't try anything you're not familiar with.
Yeah, and I really love that setup. I was actually going to come to it anyway, but I really love that setup because you show what can be done with a limited amount of space. So you're using like the Light Dome Mini, you're using like a very small black flag at the back, but you can still, because it's a close-up shot, you can still achieve a really beautiful look to it, right? Even in small spaces.
Right.
Cool. Well, thanks for your questions, guys. We're just going to go through the remaining ones before we wrap up. Any final questions, drop them below and David will be happy to answer them. Cognition says, what kind of mirrorless camera do you favor now? So what kind of handheld mirrorless camera do you favor now?
Oh, uh, hmm. I guess I haven't been using too many mirrorless ones. But there are some on the market that I'm definitely looking into. Right now, I'm currently shooting on, a Red Gemini, but the C70 looks promising. I've been shooting on the C300 Mark III. I think I would say I'm definitely looking to like a A7S III just because I'm looking for stills and video combo. Because sometimes, taking a big red is just not ideal. But something for like small interview setups or small whatever setups, I'm definitely in the market for it. But mirrorless cameras, yeah, I don't really have a preference right now. I mean, you guys tell me what do you guys like?
Yeah, I'm probably a bit more equipped to answer that question because I'm,
Mm.
earlier on in my career than David. But yeah, I'm using the A7S III at the moment, and I really love that with a black
Yeah.
1/8 Pro Mist on there. Just because I think a lot of the modern lenses, I've got a few vintage lenses which I like using as well, but the
Mhm.
modern lenses they just look a bit too clinical. So I usually put a 1/8
Yeah.
on everything I do, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely if the project calls for it, I like to use it as well. And I've noticed, yeah, a lot of lenses are really sharp. Some of the projects that we've talked about that you've seen, some of those like are on Sigma zooms or whatever, and they're still pretty sharp, a little sharp from what I need it to be. But when I have the opportunity to shoot on vintage lenses, yeah, I mean, it's awesome because um, vintage lenses on the newer digital sensors just look great, but the sharper like modern day lenses on old film cameras look fantastic as well. So there's that kind of thing you could play around with for sure. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, and as an extension for that, I would say that what got me thinking more creatively in terms of my lens choices is just when I picked up a few of my dad's old photography lenses and adapted them to the mount, because like you said, they have a character to them, right? So they have a specific look. It can kind of be a softness, it can be a slight increase or decrease in contrast, it can be kind of a variety of things, flaring, things like that. But using those on more modern cameras gives you the best of both, right? Because you've got all of the nice kind of assist features that come with a new camera, but the character of an old lens.
Yeah, and cameras, have come a really long way, from when I first started. But I still like shooting on old film cameras when I have the opportunity to. But I remember when I, kind of first started in my cinematography career, I was shooting, I was renting out like what HVX 200s or AF, Panasonic AF 100s, very modernized 1080p. That was just like, like an AF100, I still love the color of it. Panasonic's their color is pretty good. But from then until now, just like you could pick up almost any camera and just make it look amazing. Like it's crazy how much technology has just come. So for that's why when DPs always say cameras are just tools, and it's true. I mean it depends on your preferred look. Where when it comes to lighting, there's a lot of like different tools using for that, but for the most part lighting is just kind of universal in terms of like, okay, what is going to set the mood, what tools needed for this. If you're shooting on a camera that shoots 24 frames per second or 25 in the UK, you'd like to use those certain lights, whereas if you shoot on a camera that shoots 1,000 frames per second, like on a Phantom or whatever, you're going to need a lot more powerful lights. But when I approach a scene or when I approach a project, I'm mostly thinking about the lighting than the camera. That's just me though.
No, 100%. I found that kind of when I've grown most in kind of my development as a camera operator, videographer, cinematographer, whatever you want to call it, is when I've kind of really dug into lighting. And I've tried to do that kind of during lockdown, looking into kind of ratios and kind of using things in a bit more unconventional way.
Yeah, totally. A lot of people who are you just starting out or videographers or cinematographers, definitely besides the foundation, the basics, really learn what other people are doing. See if you got a project coming up that's like a horror film or a dramatic piece, find similar ones, see how they break it down, see what kind of lighting you think they use, really kind of just study film as much as possible. Even to today, I'm doing the same thing I did 10 years ago. I'm up to like 2 or 3 a.m. looking at the latest trends, looking at the latest lighting thing, just trying to keep my knowledge intact and try to make sure that, I'm caught up on everything, because at any point you can get called for a job and it's like, okay, I want this, this, and this. And if you've been, not keeping up with things, that you might be a little lost, that's just my kind of input on that.
No, absolutely. And I find myself now, whenever I'm watching, whether it be a commercial or a show we're watching, I really annoy my fiance because I'm like, wait, pause that frame and let me just let me see where they placed that black light. Let me see where they're using what diffusion were they using, and she's just like, just play the thing, like stop
right,
geeking out.
Right. Yeah. I tend to do that a lot too, but not when I watch a movie for the first time. Because I mainly want to get into the story. If the lighting is just kind of like, if you notice the lighting too much, then they're not probably doing their job that well. But after I watch a movie, I'll watch it again. Might not be right after. It might be a week or maybe a month or a year later. But when I watch it again, then like, oh, okay, I'll break down the lighting. Unless it's one that I'm really in love with, I really enjoy, and I really want to break it down, I'll watch it again right after. But when I tend to watch movies over, I'll definitely pause. I'll definitely break it down. My wife doesn't like to watch movies with me sometimes in the beginning when I was doing that as well. But yeah, it's definitely study as much as you can. That's good advice for sure.
100%. And we'll just quickly go over the last questions in a minute, but just briefly what you said there, I want to touch on. You said that if lighting is too obvious, they're not doing their job properly. And I think the same is true with kind of framing, because I watched Handmaid's Tale recently with my girlfriend. Was it about not a month ago? Yeah, a few months ago anyway. And the shots in there are absolutely beautiful. So beautiful. Amazing framing. The lighting's beautiful. But I was constantly thinking, maybe it's just because what we do, I was thinking that just looks too perfect. It looks too sculpted. It looks too... And they used like a load of center framing, but it was like every shot had to be that, and it had to be like... So I don't know what your thoughts are on kind of overdoing the craft in some ways.
Well, I mean, it really, in terms of their look, it really dials down to the production value. That's why it looks so good, because it's a, high budgeted, TV series. But I don't think there are times where, you could be overthinking it, and sometimes, you just really got to like, okay, take a pause, see what can be added, see what can be subtracted. But don't overthink it. I mean, if especially if you're still learning, but when it comes to like the Handmaid's Tale and things like that, I think all the stuff you're talking about, like center of the frame, make sure that every shot was kind of, they look like they planned it out. And that goes back to the DP, communicating with their gaffer, communicating with the production design, especially with their director. Those shots probably came from the director, and then the DP just envisioned it and just, executed it well. So
cool.
I don't know
so
if
we've got a question. No, that does. That's perfect. Yeah. We've got a question from Justin Morrison, who says, when you were starting out, did you have a passion for commercial work, or do you come with a primary interest in narrative filmmaking?
Well, when I started out, it was, even to this day, narrative is like just what I mainly want to do. But when it comes to my commercial work, I try to apply as much as I can in terms of like a narrative feel or, a storytelling thing. But there are times where, you really just need to get down to the meat of the product. Commercial work is great to be on and to learn and to just overall, gain a lot of experience. But I mainly want to be doing narrative for sure.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a trend among people. They kind of get into commercial work just because you got to pay the bills and etc. And I do a lot of kind of more entry level, but more kind of commercial and corporate stuff. But definitely in the future, narrative would be really fun to do, just because I guess you can make more creative decisions, right? Not just be limited to corporate or high key or whatever.
Well, I guess that depends, as a general term, as a filmmaker, as in the question, it depends. Are you the writer? Are you the director? If you're the cinematographer, you're executing what the director is envisioning, right? So when it comes to narrative, there's a lot more opportunity for, lighting a scene with a little bit of lights, or just like creating that mood. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do that with commercials. You totally can. But it's there. It's just kind of like a different aspect, because for commercials, you're selling a product, rather than for narratives, you're telling a story, more or less. I mean, the product is your movie, but yeah.
Yeah, but I guess what we saw in the first piece we looked at, that that was very story based anyway. So you still are kind of telling that story, but it's kind of linked to a product rather than the story being the end goal, right?
Story is key. I think that's why a lot of us filmmakers really got into filmmaking. Just it expresses your what's going on inside your mind. It expresses your visions, in one of the strongest visual mediums, I think, video or film. But as I believe David was saying right now, a lot of narrative DPs still shoot commercial work too. Yeah, a lot of narrative DPs also came up through commercial work. So I think it's great to just try to implement any kind of storytelling in any kind of project that you possibly can do. I know I find myself having to pay the bill, so I'll do like live events and things like that. So there's not much storytelling going on. You're just mainly operating the camera and getting coverage. But yeah, when it comes to anything else, storytelling is key for me, at least.
Great comment there, David. And yeah, we're going to wrap up in a minute, so drop any final questions you have for David. But my final question, David, is just for, I think a lot of people can identify with...
John.
Sorry?
Sorry, John, not David.
Did I say David? Sorry. It's because David's in the comments. Sorry, yeah. So if you've got any final questions for John, drop them below. But yeah, my final question is kind of linked to people that are more in my kind of level. So I'm kind of 2 or 3 years into doing kind of videography, commercial, corporate. And, if people like me are looking to step up to kind of work with more crews, work with bigger cameras, and have more kind of like involved lighting and things like that, what are some of the steps that you would advise them to take, or even advice that you would give them?
I would say I would say definitely join other crews, other productions, as a gaffer, as a grip, as an AC, things that really kind of tie into like the whole camera and lighting position as a cinematographer. So definitely learn. I would say, nothing's going to happen overnight. I remember earlier on in my career, I wanted to be, top level. I was like, why are people calling me? You got a lot to learn, and definitely stay humble. Ego kind of kills everything where, nobody's going to want to work with you. I know it's different in certain places, but at least with the tight community that we have here in the Bay Area, everybody's friendly, everybody's nice, everybody's just, pleasure to work with. But there are different ways for people to come up. I know DPs who come up through the gaffer position. I know DPs who come up through, the camera department. And if you're just looking to learn more, definitely explore all different aspects of filmmaking, not just videography, not just camera. I remember my mentor told me, if you want to be a good director, learn everything about filmmaking, because you're going to want to communicate to your production designer. You want to communicate to your AD, to your gaffer, to everything. You're the top leader in charge, and nobody gets there by themselves. I mean, if you're self-taught, where are you getting the information? You're getting it from YouTube, or if you're learning within a big crew, you're getting that support from a big crew. So just try not to do it alone.
That's really good advice. And I think from my experience and from what you're saying as well, the filmmaking videography community is really great and really, really kind of open to sharing ideas and sharing advice. So things that I found really useful as well is joining Facebook groups. That's actually where me and John met. So seeing other kind of creators share stuff. John is very active in Cinematographers on Facebook group, and he kind of shares a lot of lighting breakdowns and things like that. So just joining groups like that is really useful, because you can kind of see a lot of people post kind of like BTS stuff, so you can kind of see the process behind it as well. So I find that really useful.
Yeah, and that's another thing I forgot to mention. I still even find myself, I'm searching through Instagram, looking at all the behind the scenes, the breakdowns. You know, I'm just saving or screenshotting stuff to look at later. I know I've heard some people is like, oh, I just want to look at stuff so I can just copy them. I mean, that's the point. You know, you learn the techniques, you learn, you know, where how they're setting their mood. And it's not necessarily you're copying, you're just being inspired to try something on your own. It's like, okay, I'm going to try that, see how that works, you know, because you're not every lighting setup is going to be the same in every place you go. You know, something that could look good right now is not going to look good in a different, different shoot, different set. But, you know, looking at all these other examples, and that's a reason why I created this group that you're part of, Lighting for Facebook group, is to just share what I've learned and learn off of others. You know, I don't consider myself an expert, but at the same time, I've been in the industry for 10 years. I've worked on, you know, numerous of different projects, and I like how people are now, well, people have been, but I like how much people are sharing now, and you know, we all learn from one another, and it's really great. It's a really great resource for sure.
Yeah, and you've probably found as well, but I find actually, as well as learning constantly, educating others is actually really fulfilling. So although I'm still very new, I can still give advice to people that are literally just starting, because, you know, there's that wealth of knowledge, and then people like me can look up to, you know, more experienced people like you and kind of share the knowledge there. And yeah,
and me really, like looking at other people more experienced than me. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I always kind of think that if you've made it to a certain point, wherever you are in your career, it's important to, you know, send the elevator back down, share your knowledge, and kind of help others learn and grow at the same time. But
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, John, thanks so much for joining us. I was really interested by kind of everything you had to say, and it's given me a lot to think about. Thank you to the audience for watching. You've been great. It's been some great questions. Is there anything you want to add before we wrap up here, John?
Yeah, I mean, maybe just a little little advice, call to action, I guess. You know, the whole role of being a cinematographer or DP, director of photography, to me sounds very prestigious. You know, just taking on that title, but you know, don't let anybody, you know, kind of just weigh you down. You're gonna make a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes. Sometimes I even find myself still making some of those same mistakes. But don't let anybody weigh you down. Just, if you're a cinematographer, own it. You know, be out there, do what you got to do. You know, constantly shoot, constantly study. You know, things aren't going to happen overnight, so you definitely got to be patient. Definitely be patient.
Brilliant. And we've just said, David and MH Media have just said thanks, John. And I'd just like to echo that. Thanks, John, for joining us. It's been super interesting. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you as well.
Everybody take care. Bye.
All right, bye. Thanks.